Hello and welcome to the Indiana State Police Roadshow. I'm your host, Sergeant John Perrine, the Public Information Officer for the Indiana State Police Indianapolis District. The Roadshow is brought to you by the Indiana State Police Alliance and Cops for Kids, a subsidiary of the State Police Alliance. For more information about our sponsor, visit www.indianasfinest.com. I want to thank MS Communication Network Indiana for getting us on the radio each and every week. We certainly appreciate our partnership with them so that we can deliver our message on the radio waves. And if you're watching us on the YouTube channel, either for the first time or for the 100th time or more, it's thanks to our good friend Tom Trial, who does so much work to put stuff on the YouTube channel. And that's what I do at night. I just lay in bed and watch our YouTube channel.
Yes, I do too.
I mean, what else would there be to do? TikTok, right? or ISP YouTube, right? No, lots and lots of cool things on there. My guest today, Captain Ron Galavez, back again, Chief PIO. So thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me, John. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so if you're watching us, you're probably noticing we are wearing short sleeve shirts and no ties. And we all 1,100 and something troopers, or however many wear a uniform, mark our calendars on April 1st, counting down that day.
Yes.
And although we all love how sharp the winter uniform looks, this summer uniform, we get to take our tie off and go to short sleeves and enjoy the nice weather, and that just leads us to know that good weather is coming.
Right. Not only is good weather coming, but also, some really good times are coming. We got a number of big events that are going to hit Central Indiana, one of which here we're probably less than 50 days away now to the Indianapolis 500, and that's going to be awesome. So,
always a great time.
But on November 30th, on Halloween, every year when I'm changing my summer uniform to my winter, just
there's a couple tears that hit the floor, and
there is. But now the spring is here, and so the nice
the funny thing is Superintendent Carter loves our winter uniform so much that if it was up to him, I think we'd wear it year round. Although it is up to him, I think he also takes into context that we do enjoy
for sure
the short sleeves.
Yeah, I know, and they are,
and the hat. We change our hats too.
Our class, our Class A uniform. It is very sharp, very professional looking, but
very steep in tradition as well.
Oh my goodness!
You look at the pictures; it hasn't changed.
No, it has not. No, it has not.
The only thing we don't wear is the knee-high leather boots, unless you're a motorcycle guy,
right? And so again, this is our 90th anniversary.
Yeah,
and so tradition is a very, very big part of everything that we do. Yeah, including our uniforms.
So speaking of summer, lots of fun things happen in the summer. People get outside. We're already getting outside. The weather's been incredible so far this month. But a lot of those activities, if not taken in a safe way, could create quite some substantial dangers. And one is, we'll talk about motorcycle riding.
Yes, absolutely.
A lot of motorcycles already out. People are itching to, if you own a motorcycle, to get out on the road. Right. But it's time for us to start thinking about that and changing driving behavior for those kind of harder to see motorcycles sometimes.
Sure. They have such a lower profile and such a thin profile. So that's why part of the reason that Indiana law requires that they operate even during the daylight with their headlight on so that they can be a little bit more visible. So I saw a tweet from the Michigan State Police yesterday saying, motorcycles are out. If you haven't seen any, you're not looking. Yeah. And that's exactly right. They're out there. So again, you see it all the time, people checking their mirrors before they make their lane changes and whatnot. Check your mirrors, of course, but make sure you turn your head, because those motorcycles could easily be in a blind spot when you're doing everything you can do to make a safe lane change. So
and at no fault of the motorcycle oftentimes, but I will give the advice, if you are riding a motorcycle, do what you can to avoid those blind spots. Right. And most of the people that I know that ride motorcycles, I don't. But most of them that I know, they're very well aware of the safest places to ride around other traffic, so that they're visible, and they're expecting those unsafe lane changes right in front of them or right beside them.
And what you start to see more, I have anyways, are more people wearing the reflective a vest or reflective clothing to make themselves more visible.
Yeah, you know what? And as annoying as those pulsing headlights are that you see on some of them from a distance, they're as visible as anything I've ever seen when you
absolutely.
And so motorcycle safety, our ISP Motor Patrol, they're getting them back out, even though they ride year round for certain events. You'll see them more and more on the roads. So it's time to open your eyes, limit your distractions in your car, as we always say, but expect those motorcycles everywhere you go.
In fact, we're going to have a few more motorcycles out. One of the guys I know that works in special operations, who was a motorcycle patrol trooper in Fort Wayne for a number of years, one of our pilots, has kind of been tasked kind of a little bit more on a part-time basis. So they're going back through a refresher course right now. Nice. So, he's thrilled by that opportunity. So, again, just pay attention. We say it all the time. Pay attention to your surroundings. Check your blind spots, but even turn your head. Turn your head and look just to make double sure, because it could be saving somebody's life.
Well, Indiana has the hands-free law. When we talk about distracted drivers, the first thing that comes to mind is cell phones, right?
Yes.
We always think about the need to be connected with your cell phone, whether it be you're listening to music, you're watching a map, you're making a phone call, answering a text. There's that desire to stay connected. Right. But if you're driving a car, you cannot have a phone in your hand. Whether you're changing a song, whether you're answering a phone call, your phone cannot physically be in your hand. You can talk on it, hands-free, on speakerphone, as long as it's mounted. But recently I've stopped some cars that they have it in their hand talking on speakerphone, and when I explained to them, they thought that they were hands-free. They thought by talking on speakerphone, they were being hands-free, when the reality is the phone was still in their hand. Right,
yeah. And every now and again, you'll still come across people that, I didn't know it was a law. This July, it's going to be the 3rd anniversary. Yeah. It's been in effect for 3 years now. So, again, just a friendly reminder, there is an exception, one, to operating your vehicle with the phone in your hand, and that's if you're on the phone with 911.
Yeah.
But even then, if you have to call 911, there's probably a pretty good chance you might be your adrenaline kicking a little bit, emotional based on the reason you're calling. So it might still be a good idea to pull off side of the road.
Yeah, talking on the phone, even if you're hands free, you're still distracted.
You are.
because your mind is distracted. I think all of us have always been in that moment where you're in a conversation and then you realize, oh, was that a red light? Was that a green light? Was that a stop sign? Did I miss something?
Or, the most common one, I just missed my exit. Oh, I just missed my turn.
Yeah. So your mind gets distracted just as much as your eyes. But phones aren't the only distraction in a car.
Yeah.
If you look at any new car, the technology, the touchscreen radios, just to turn on the air conditioning, there's several steps often. And so limit those distractions and really focus on driving.
But you still see people having lunch in their cars, doing their hair and makeup. You still see that.
Eating breakfast with two hands. They've got a spoon and a bowl, and they're driving with their knees.
Or one hand on the steering wheel, the other one behind the passenger side headrest, and their head turned back, engaging with the kids in the back seat or dealing with the animal.
So the distractions are
prevalent.
Countless. And again, another time, we've summertime, it's all coming so fast. And before we know it, we get in our busy schedules and our routines change. But the construction zones are really amping up right now.
Yep, they are.
Everywhere you go in central Indiana, you are going to drive through a construction zone.
Yep. And with construction zones means construction workers. And vehicles parked on the side of the road, but most importantly are the construction workers, because those men and women are working so hard to make our roadways so much better for us to move to and from, that unfortunately we take that for granted, and we need to be very cognizant that those folks are out there. And so the speed limits and all the warning signs that you see well in advance of those zones, they're there for a reason. They're not there for decoration, even though after a while they just kind of blend in, especially if you go through that area all the time, but they're set there for a reason.
Yeah, and oftentimes those reduction in speed limits and things aren't only to protect the workers. And sometimes people think, well, the workers aren't even in the zone, so I can drive normal. Well, the speed's reduced because of the lane shifts, the narrow lanes, the sudden lane shifts. And the majority of people that are killed in work zones are not the workers that are there.
You're right.
Every year we get some, unfortunately, it seems. But most of the fatal crashes that we investigate in work zones involve two vehicles that have crashed into each other.
Right. And then, so in a construction zone, that bottlenecks up the rest of the traffic. We've seen traffic back up for 7, 8, 9, 10 miles.
Yeah.
And so the hazard there, and now we're talking secondary crashes down the way.
Yeah.
And, so it has, and unfortunately, we've seen fatal crashes back in the queue.
Yeah.
So again, it's, you're right. Those signs, those warning signs are put there for a reason. Both for the workers, but also for you and I traveling through there.
You put your eyes down for a second and you come up on the back of one of those queues. That queue may be well beyond the construction signs where you have no idea, or maybe something completely unrelated. But as soon as you see those brake lights ahead of you, got to start slowing down.
For sure.
Some of the most catastrophic crashes that we see involve somebody crashing into the back of a stopped queue, because there's multiple victims when that happens.
Absolutely. So again, the distraction, you talk about looking down, traveling 55 miles an hour. When you look down for 4 seconds or not, you've gone the distance of a football field.
Yeah.
And that's hard to fathom.
And that's not very long.
Doesn't take long at all.
Yeah. So we've got construction, we've got motorcycles. Another thing that the summertime brings with outdoor activities is jumping on a boat and going out on the lake, spending a day on the lake, spending time on a lake. But there are some safety things that people need to be thinking about. Now, we're not the DNR. We're not here to talk about boating regulations.
Right.
Just common sense safety if you're going to be going out on a boat.
Right. Make sure that you have enough personal flotation devices for all of your passengers. I mean, that's a requirement. A throwable device, and just like driving on a highway in your car, don't be operating a boat or a device like that if you've been drinking.
Yeah.
I mean, because again, that too is against the law. And we see it. There's a lot of people on our lakes. So again, being vigilant, paying attention to your surroundings, and not operating that watercraft over and above your capabilities or its capabilities, because those things, you operating the SS Perrine,
right,
those things don't stop.
Canoe.
They don't stop on a dime. They don't. It's not like being in a motor vehicle. So
right. That's right.
Maybe take an education course. Be properly schooled. But above all, just use common sense.
It just comes down to common sense safety. Anytime you're going out for any activity, whether it's camping, boating, hiking, whatever it may be, make sure you're taking a conscious effort to think about safety. What do I need to be safe? What am I going to do to be safe? Right. How am I going to communicate with other people to keep myself safe?
And what I did when I got my pontoon, there's some questions I had because I never owned a pontoon before.
Yeah.
So I had my list of questions, and the person I called a conservation officer. Because they're a great resource. And just like the state police or your sheriff's department, they're happy to answer those questions because they want to see people doing the right thing, the legal thing, and the proper thing on the waterways, just like we do on the roadways.
Yeah, and then one more summer activity to talk about today before we wrap up is those backyard swimming pools. I'm starting to see them open up, but routines are going to change. Maybe you haven't been locking the gate, and it's time to start locking the gate. Right. But make sure that if you own a backyard pool, your neighbor has a pool, or your neighborhood has a pool, think about safety. Make sure you're educating your children about the dangers of that, because kids seem to be drawn to those.
Right.
And it seems like heartbreakingly every single year we see the tragic consequence of just somebody turning their head for a second and a child getting into a pool.
And that's all it takes is a second, and it doesn't take a lot of water.
Yeah.
So kind of on that note, as a parent, if you haven't, or as a grandparent or an aunt or uncle or a family member, if you haven't thought about it, now might be a good opportunity to take a first aid class, especially CPR.
Yeah.
Because the life you save could be somebody that you know and love. So again, having that skill set, that knowledge out by the poolside, it could come in handy the moment you least expect it.
Well, and that's the thing is have a plan of what that rescue looks like. Yes. Have the necessary devices, flotation devices, whatever it is, poolside, so that if you need to make that rescue, you're able to do so.
Absolutely.
But be thinking safety. Really, safety comes down to common sense.
It does.
I mean, if you're having to ask yourself, is this safe or not, then you're doing your due diligence, right? You're thinking about a mental checklist of how do I make this situation more safe?
Yep. And just like everything else, have a plan. Have a plan. It doesn't have to be perfect, but at least in your mind, this is what I'm going to do if.
Yeah. And try to plan for the worst and hope that you never need any of the supplies, any of the first aid kits that you pack away. Right. But you have them if you ever need them.
Yep, absolutely.
And so it's summertime. We know that a lot of these activities include the consumption of alcohol, and however people choose to celebrate whatever they're celebrating is on them as an adult. However, if they make the conscious and reckless decision to get behind the wheel of a car after consuming alcohol, then it becomes our problem.
It does.
And everybody else's problem. And that's what we're asking people to do is, people always ask me, well, how do I know? How do I know if I've had too much? How do I know if 2 or 3 beers is too much? My answer is quite simple. If you have to take time to ask yourself, have I had too much? The answer is yes.
Yes.
If you're at that level where you're saying, have I had too, the answer is yes. Yep. Don't risk it.
Nope.
There's too much on the line, not to include your life and the lives of others, but just getting caught.
And there's too many opportunities or ways to get transportation without putting yourself in that jeopardy.
Yep. So I want to thank my guest, Captain Galavest, for coming in. It's summertime. We're in short sleeves. We're loving the sun shining. We're those outdoor activities are gearing up. We just want everybody to be able to do those things safely. So thank you, everybody, for tuning into the Indiana State Police Roadshow, brought to you by the Indiana State Police Alliance and Cops for Kids, a subsidiary of the State Police Alliance. Tune in again on the YouTube channel next week. Every week we try to get a new show put up, new content and new guests. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we will see you next time.